Hello and welcome to another roundtable of Dualistic Unity. This one, number 27. I am feeling all sorts of stuff. And as always, and not really settling upon a certainty about what it is or what's happening or really what's going on in general, because I don't need to know that as much as I habitually run to trying to gain an understanding of a situation and be able to know with absolute certainty what it is. There's a freedom in just being willing to know and recognize that maybe I don't know anything. Maybe I don't know anything, period. All of a sudden, all of my attention is back here. And not to say that's what it's all about, but it's an option.
Not to say that's what it's all about, but that's actually what's happening here now. That's where things happen. This is where change occurs. And in that change, you have some influence. And that's it. That's the entirety of your life. And it's not that looking backwards and looking forwards can't be informative, but you're never actually looking backwards and forwards. You're only looking at what you're cherry picking. You're only looking at what you want to see or what you're afraid to see. You're never seeing everything that's happened or everything that will happen. And that's all. It's really just important to keep that in mind, because then you're in reality, being reality with all of the potential of all of reality.
With all that said, I hope you enjoy this episode that is roundtable number 27, Dualistic Unity.
And here we are for another roundtable episode. God damn, I love roundtable episodes. We just had an episode of Dualistic Unity Social before this. And I thought it was really interesting because we were talking about cannabis. And of course, I was making the point that out of all of the things that influence us, whether it be sugar or caffeine or alcohol or just not getting enough fucking sleep, how about stress from school, judgment from other people, that kind of things? Out of all of the things that could influence us, cannabis is really at the low end in terms of how much harm it can cause. And of course, we went through, the discussion about the fact that, like, if somebody is suffering so much that they are looking for an out or looking for some cessation to their suffering and they discover cannabis, that's really, again, kind of the most minimal thing that they could discover. And their point was, well, it's going to lead them to something else. And my counter to that would simply be, if they get to a point where it's not enough for them, that has nothing to do with cannabis. That's a point that they would have come to in anything. This is why people start, sucking the gas out of whipped cream containers, right? Is because they're looking for a little bit more high. It has nothing to do with cannabis and everything to do with the person who is going through the suffering that is driving them to want to find that. So I find it really funny where it's just like, well, the cannabis is going to lead them to more drugs, rather than the cannabis is a really good indicator that their life sucks and we should do something about it. Instead, it's, oh, take that fucking only joy they've got away from them. That's not going to do any harm at all, rather than just addressing the fact that this person is constantly being stressed out to the point where they need some cessation from their own judgment even. And that's often the case. Sometimes it's not even stress in their life, it's what they're putting themselves through. So, point made. This is a roundtable. We have people here: Marie, Amanda, and of course Levi. Levi, I'm going to pass it over to you. Welcome. Glad that you could join us.
Yeah, thanks. No, it just, when you're talking about this, it just hit me that, like, before, like, starting to question all these things, that basically Dualistic Unity is kind of like guiding me through in some way. I was constantly like high on stress, like in my life. That was like, I was chasing, and I was, and I was like, I got all these diseases, I got quite a lot of gray hair on my side that just started to come out. I got this vertigo thing going on where I was just in bed for a while, and like a lot of things, and I just felt very unhealthy, and it's just, yeah, why aren't we talking about that? I mean, people are talking about it as well, but it's like, now I'm like feeling, yeah, just so much lighter, and smoking some weed here and there. I mean, I can't even like begin to like understand why someone would like and if you compare me now and then, like no weed, a lot of hard work, versus now, and it's just, yeah. And another thing that hit me is like in kind of this state where you kind of get a little bit more relaxed and you smoke a little bit weed, or not necessarily, but just more relaxed. It's like we are like, maybe I'm like less productive in like the traditional sense, but I can see also like I'm more open to like the options, like, and maybe I'm choosing a better option, like just because I'm, not so tense and stressed and focused on this specific thing that has to happen. So I actually find that a lot more productive, even though maybe I'm not working as much as before.
Right, because we never know what the best thing to do or the right thing to do is ever, like, at all. Even the thing that if we're sensitive and it feels, like the right thing, it's like we still don't know that, or recognizing certain things and then realizing, oh, like none of them are the right thing to do. Like being for our life, we don't even know, because we could spend 100 hours straight working super hard thinking that that's like the best thing to do, versus if we had been a little bit more relaxed as we went through, did some, I don't know, more intentional work, and then did a couple other things, maybe we see an opportunity or have a certain thought hits us, just because we're more willing to not know and just kind of be sensitive to what's going on and flow with things a little bit more, we may come across certain opportunities that are 10 times more impactful to whatever we even initially were trying to do than paying attention to nothing else but my idea of the quote unquote right thing to do. And it kind of reminds me of yesterday. I was just talking about how when my accounts on social media like went kind of viral from a couple of videos, and very much had a strategy behind it. It's the right type of video to make, in quotes, of course. And you don't know the impact long term, and how much is that cutting down on your experience. Like during that time, maybe if I had been smoking a little bit more weed, I would have been a little bit more relaxed as I was going through it, and a little bit more myself, and maybe things wouldn't have gone viral or blown up as much. But it comes down to my experience. Like, what are we being all stressed and rigid trying to be controlling to get to, if not a state in which we can sit back and relax a little bit and not fucking judge ourselves? Like, why was I posting the correct type of video that wasn't necessarily the thing that initially came to mind? It was sure an insight, and then curated into the correct way, manipulated into the correct way, which isn't freedom. Like it's not super relaxed, because then it's like, all right, I got to make sure I'm doing it the right way. And it's like this constant pursuit of finding the right way, finding the correct way to live. And that isn't something that you find, but there can at least be more sensitivity to what's going on when you're taking in all the considerations. And so when it comes to, cannabis, when you take in the full picture, you disregard the, oh, cannabis is a bad thing, but you look at everything, see the other options for someone going through something. Like you're saying, like someone messaged me yesterday how they used to be on a bunch of Xanax and pharmaceutical antidepressants that caused them to just feel awful and super numb all the time to everything. They started smoking cannabis every single day. They've consumed some form of cannabis every day for the last 8 years, and they're actually fully living their life again. So when you take in all of the considerations, like this illusion that, oh, life's about not being influenced by anything ever, and you should just be able to be sober all the time, and that's the best way to do it. It's like we're always being influenced. Sobriety is not the real thing that we think it is. It's an illusion that allows us to more easily feel like we can be in control, and again, are doing the right thing. Being sober is the right way to live. Anything else is like, ooh, maybe it's not too bad, but like it's a little bit of a variation from the right thing. So you don't want to be in that spot for too long. You might start questioning too much, or wondering, or being a little bit curious about how things are going. A little too curious.
It's kind of funny, you know, because when you think about all of the things that really fuck with your state of mind and your ability to deal with reality rationally, and if you were to go, yeah, you know, we got to make those things illegal, you think the top of the list would be stress. You'd think like society would be like, if you're too fucking stressed, you need to sit the fuck down. What can we get for you? Because that's fucking with you and you're fucking with us. That's the worst drug right there. And that's not our priority at all. It's so fucking funny. But I was thinking what you were saying earlier about, you know, judgment and getting to this point in our lives where, you know, we can be happy. Well, you can just stop doing it right now. But we have this idea that once I get to a place where I've satisfied everybody else's judgment, then I can be happy. Right? Once I've satisfied them, it's like you're assuming a lot about them. You know, in fact, it's all still you. It's all still your judgments. And that's why it's hard for a lot of people when somebody actually does compliment them to recognize that compliment. Right? Because they're still judging themselves. Isn't that funny and kind of tragic? You know, I go through this all the time. People will say something to me, you know, it's like, oh, wow, that was a really great thing to say, Ray, or, oh, you're such a nice person, Ray. And to me, it comes through, but there's almost a grudging resistance to it. And it's just because I've held on to my idea of myself for so very long, you know, and I'm still holding on to this judgment of myself. And it's this perpetual habit of how am I doing? Am I doing okay? And then finally getting to the point where you're like, well, nobody can actually verify that for me. And then so just dealing with what was an addiction to looking to others to verify that for you. You know, and that's our relationship with all parents and all authorities. Somebody telling us you're doing good now. It's like, oh God, thank God. You know, but there is no you're doing good now. Right. And so you go through this phase of like, I don't need you to fucking tell me that. And then the flip side of that, the other side of the pendulum, is when people do tell you you're doing good and you can't fucking hear it because you spent so long telling yourself you didn't need it. And so finally, after all that stupid shit, you come to a point where you can recognize, you know, when it's a compliment, you know, when it's actually, you know, an authentic recognition of what you're doing. And you can recognize whether you're boosting yourself up from it or just taking it in as, you know, acknowledgement of the changes that you've made. But there is such an interesting process to go through. And it is the process of maturity. You see it all the time. I see it right now with my teenage daughter. Like there was this point where everything I did was to take care of her. And then there was a point where she's like, I want some space of my own. You know, and then you kind of like, I want my space. And you start to get more aggressive about it, you know, not violently aggressive, but in some kids though. And that's the point, is that they go through this phase of maturity of like, I don't need you anymore. I'm good. And then later on, they get more context and they go, oh, I can still enjoy you. You know, we can have a relationship. It was never based on need. I was just perceiving it that way because I had always actually needed you. So the flip side to needing somebody is the rebellion against them. You know, and that's the hard part about, you know, loving somebody, is watching them as they oscillate back and forth throughout whatever lesson they're going through. But it's all developmental at the end of the day. If you remember that, then you don't take it too personally, you know.
Oh yeah, it's that's an interesting one. How much will, you know, like thinking that someone, you know, there's that shift, and then it's like comes back, if we're not willing to prioritize ourselves and live for ourselves, we push back on someone who was there when we felt like we couldn't, until we had the opportunity to, and then it just comes back to you. And so much of this just comes back to you, like we were talking about on whatever live social we were on before this, just looking around someone else for the right thing to do, like the right way of doing anything. Because eventually you start to see that, oh, I'm the one in my way, so I can't really put it on someone else. But if I want to put it on someone else, I'll choose to, just to diminish my own experience and be sure of something. And then with the self-judgment compliment thing. I do the same fucking thing, dude. It's because so much of it is, well, if someone else sees me as not, not judging me the way I judge myself, then am I doing something wrong or am I incorrect? It's like I want to confirm that I'm doing the right thing by judging myself, that my perception of myself is correct. And so if you're typically falling on the side of self-judgment, then someone giving you a compliment is going to spit in the face of that. So of course it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. Whereas on the flip side, if you think very highly of yourself all the time, and there can be that, desire for it, but it kind of goes both ways on both sides, because it can feel good then to get a pat on the back, like you're doing the right thing versus doing something well. And it's like dependent on the situation. And it's whether I'm doing something out of a craving for that validation, or doing something that I thought was a dumb thing to do, that then someone else comes around and says, like, it wasn't, that was actually a great thing. Like if you go on a rant or something and you're like, immediately like, oh, that was kind of a stupid thing to say. And then someone's like, yeah, that was super well said. You're like, wait a second. That means I'm wrong. And I don't like that. I don't like the way that feels. Marie?
That comment that you just made was like, all right, Marie, raise your fucking hand, because I like kind of going through that, because I'll rant on here and then feel exactly what you just said. Like, I don't know if any of that made sense, and we all talk about it. And that's what's beautiful about, just jumping in and finding out. So today, a line came up for me that I liked. I was talking with a teacher and talking about like the playful attitude I've been having on my way to work. Like I'll walk through the park and kind of like, find different things, pick it up and, run at certain points and go over hills and just like look at the trees and then just playing with the walk reminds me that like of the innocence, the playful attitude that like kids have, and will think that has to just be for kids or people on drugs, even, funny enough. You can't, you have to be serious. I think this came up also in the social, like the idea of like being serious, and how it seems like as we get older, that playfulness dissipates. And so I was talking to my teacher about it and just like how ridiculous that is and how silly that is. And it's like, why would we be here if like, why would we be here if we couldn't fucking play? My God, it's like, is it that so fucking serious? Oh God. So it's like fun to explore that. And then we ended up coming to the point of saying like, I don't know, like, what's happening, or I don't know in general, but I'm here to learn. So it was just like, we were talking about like how I try to come to work, and I don't know what it looks like and what I'm doing and ever, which is funny. But when I'm leaning into that, and I'm just there to be and to learn, and so as I was writing it again, because I had it and it was on my notebook today, and it was a reminder. I was going to write it again in my notebook that I have here. And I stopped at, I don't know, but I'm here. And I'm like, wait, I could stop there. Because like, I don't necessarily have to learn. And learning is like, that's subjective. It's like, that's, that even has a label that, you can go into, but just stopping at like, I'm here. Because I could show up however I'm going to show up. Sometimes I like to just fuck with things, and you do end up learning when you like fuck. I don't know. It's just, it's fun to just show up that way, because why not? And the more I've been leaning into that, the more that's been showing up for me. The more that I let go, which is fun too. I think Amanda and I had a good conversation about that, of we're just like learning more and more to let go of expectations of what needs to show up for ourselves, what needs to happen in order for us to feel a certain way. Because then we realize, oh wait, it's not about the things that are happening, that I'm doing, that I obtained, that mean anything. That isn't what mean anything. So I'm not gonna hold value to that. And I'm gonna watch what happens when I don't. Oh, shit fucking comes out of nowhere all of a sudden. It's like, oh wow, here it is. Here it is. And it's like, oh, okay. And it's not even necessarily like what you expected. A lot of times it isn't, and it's even better, or not. Even that, it's, you don't want to go down that. It's just like letting go of any of that meaning anything about you, and watching just how that plays out in your experience. So that's been cool. Yeah, it's been interesting.
Agreed. After however long I've been practicing exactly that, I will agree. It's pretty cool and interesting, right? But that is it. It's this recognition that you're always kind of living for this future where you're doing the right thing. Like there's a path that is the right path to the future. And so everything you do is in the name of this fictional future where you've gotten everything right. And then what you start to realize is that you've missed your whole fucking life. And so you just go. This is what I was saying to Andrew about everything. Just arrive. Like just arrive and allow yourself to play out. And what you'll find is that most of the lessons you're going to learn in your life that have any value at all are about whether or not you can just let that happen. Whether or not you can just let go. But if you don't arrive, then you're never actually talking about that lesson. You're always just trying to find the right path. And that's exhausting. And it never ends up anywhere, other than, of course, the belief that there is a right path, which is an ongoing hell that will last for the rest of your life unless you finally live here, which has very little path at all. What I love about choices, and this is something that makes me very happy, is that I have no idea where I'm going to be in 5 minutes, let alone like a month or a year. Like I have no idea. I could have a trajectory in mind, right? But it's a trajectory in mind. That's it. That's the only place that it exists. And you can ask anybody who's ever been through anything that was completely beyond their control. Right up until that point, they had a fucking trajectory. And then they didn't. And that is the reality of existence, is that while things may be repetitive, while things may have a certain familiarity from day to day, that is no indication that it will remain that way. So keep that in mind when you look at your trajectory. Understand it's just a guess based on what you know right now. Worse, based on what you're willing to look at right now. So that's a bit biased too. And as long as you keep that in mind, then you will have the priority of being here. Because you have no choice. Once you're faced with uncertainty, it really reestablishes where you should be looking. It's so funny. It's almost immediate. You can do it with anybody. Anybody. They will tell you something that they have an absolute certainty about, and you go, yeah, but what about this? And they'll just fucking dissolve. And it's just because here in the moment, life is intense and uncertain. And it's our relationship with that we're dealing with. Can you be uncertain and still trust yourself? Or do you need to step forward inch by inch, making sure that you have control of each and every one of those inches? Because it'll never happen. But as long as you believe so, that's the experience you're going to have. The alternative is just letting go, as Marie so eloquently put.
Yeah, because then, as you said, like the best thing you could do is pay attention. Like the only thing you can do in that point. It doesn't make any sense to be focused on, the whirlwind of stuff in your head if there's no guarantee of what's next or what's to come. And it's interesting, Marie said, with play, like, what are we doing here if not to play, if we can't relax? And so many people will come up with something, like heaven, for example. I'm here so that I can get to heaven. I'm here on earth school. I'm here on this path or this trajectory. Like, that's the right answer. This is the right answer. And that's very much what allows us to avoid that, avoid the discomfort that's left when you keep thinking there's a right way to do it, that's left here, and with play, it's like, well, it's not a reason to do that. Play isn't getting me to heaven. Play isn't getting me to my promotion. Play isn't getting me to this. And so if that is the underlying assumption, that you're going somewhere, that you're getting somewhere, play doesn't factor into that. And yet it's the only thing that makes sense when you realize there is not the only thing that makes sense, but it makes way more fucking sense, when there isn't that thing that you're getting to. Like, when you are just uncertain right now, there's no guarantee of a path or a trajectory that you're maintaining in your head, then, like, yeah, being free in yourself, doing the thing that you want to do, which is an interesting one too, because it's like there's that balance with that, and like just making decisions and not making assumptions about where it's going to go, I think. And there's sort of a informative nature of things when that starts to play out more and more frequently. So yeah, it's funny how many things we come up with to avoid that reality of, what are we doing here? What's really going on? And someone immediately, I can picture like 20 people jumping in and be like, oh, this is why we're here. This is why we're here. That's why we're here. This is it. This is it. This is it. And all the money behind it and all the structures behind it. And it's like, here, this is why we're here. Oh, I got this over here. I guarantee perpetual happiness forever in heaven with this Sky Daddy guy. You want to do that, right? Well, just do these things. Just make sure these things happen in this way, because you want to be sure, that this is the case. So
I just wanted to point out that was history, except with swords. You missed on the swords part. That was the other thing. It was basically everybody squabbling over what existence is and what the right way was and who to believe in and what to follow. And if you didn't agree, they had swords. And that's pretty much it. That's why we had, there was 3 crusades. I think there was 3 religious wars just in European history, not to mention religious wars in other parts of the world and whatnot. Like, these are giant fucking things over what? No, we're right. That was pretty much it. So, I mean, that's still happening. I mean, obviously we have religious extremists. Obviously we have the whole thing that's happening right now in terms of Palestine and Israel, right? But this is the extreme end of, no, it's this. And if you disagree, you're an infidel, you're a blasphemer, you're wrong, you're an unbeliever. And it's ridiculousness at the end of the day, but it's all rooted in a very real and understandable fear. The fear of not having a direction, not having a right way, not having a way to judge your progress, and therefore no way to feel valuable. It's hard for us to wrap our head around that, especially when we grew up going through the motions of development, which required us to feel valuable and then feel diminished, so we could understand both the swings. Right? But we never evolved out of that. We just kind of stuck there and then built an economy around it and created marketing, which is all about raising you up or dropping you down by contrast. And so we just settled in that developmental stage rather than recognizing that we can move beyond that and recognize, oh, right, those are superficial judgments. All right, those are just superficial, and obviously they go towards some egotistical need and so on and so forth. But that's really it. It's just we got caught in a developmental stage, and so it's just working our way through that. But if anybody here remembers being a teenager, it's fucking hard. If you were to look at our entire society as kind of a teenager, you would recognize that this is a lot. This is why we went through the age of outrage not that long ago. Does that not sound like a teenager's phase? Where everything just pisses you off? Like everything. Is that not what's happening right now and all over social media? I mean, it's funny because people will talk about the internet being, a negative thing because you spend so much time on it. All we're doing is working through our mentality in one way or another. Like all we're doing is communicating how we feel, whether you're doing it outwardly or just communicating it through doom scrolling, as it's called. There's no such thing as wasting time. Like you're using that time one way or another, right? But it always leads to something else. I always find that shit funny, like we judge ourselves for what we're doing and we forget that at some point it leads us to something else. We just want to settle on, this is the right way. It's like, there is no right way. It's really on you. What do you want to do with this? What do you want to do with this? And what do you want to do with your relationship to everything else? And if you were to just put it on somebody like that, just like communicate, nothing's going to make you more, then they would make different choices.
Levi.
Sorry. Yeah, that's been hitting me a lot this week, actually. Like this whole thing about like, because I'm kind of really feeling like that whatever I'm doing is kind of, okay. And I see that kind of the things I have been doing kind of make sense looking back at them and all this shit. But it's like, I'm also like seeing, like, for example, doom scrolling, it's, when I wake up in the morning and, I sit and then like to kind of wake up, I'm kind of scrolling for a bit and, it has a certain purpose, but it kind of, it just hit me the other day, like how this is kind of like these things that like I choose to do is kind of, they are like, it's not really what I want to do, but it's like a very like safe and nice and comfortable thing, right? And then it just hit me like, then, if that is what I do every time I get uncomfortable, that is what I will reach for. And that will be my life. It just like, then I will doom scroll and I will watch shitty TV series and I will eat a frozen pizza for dinner. And it's like, but I don't want that. Like it just hit me right in the face. Like all these preferences is just, it is just, of course, like, why would it, like, I don't know, but it's like, but at the same time, it's like, everything is okay, but I've been doing this for so long and it kind of, but that has led me to kind of to this realization, and it's like, so is it wrong? No, it's not wrong. It just, you kind of got to go through it, and yeah, I've been noticing that so much, like through this process, like with like you guys and also before that as well, like everything I've learned, I've heard it, and it's kind of coming back to me every time I'm experiencing it. But when I'm experiencing it, it kind of hits in a different way, and it's just, yeah. So I feel like you just got to go through it anyway. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Yeah, that thought of being wrong, like doing the wrong thing, it's, if you're trying to maintain like a certainty about the right and the wrong thing to do, there's going to be that aversion. And so when people have a certain idea of the right and the wrong thing, if they feel like they're doing something wrong, they're going to feel that same thing. And the I don't want to say convoluted, but the approach that most people aren't willing to look at is just letting go of the thing that they're doing right now being wrong, letting go of that certainty, letting go as they're doom scrolling. Because like if you're scrolling, like there's opportunity, like there's things on the screen, like you can pay full attention to that. But how often, if we're doing it out of a desire to just, distract ourselves or feel better, we're not even really watching the videos. Like we're not even really paying attention. It's just something to do. Or same with sweet, same with sugar. Like how often are we really taking the time to taste exactly what we're doing or tasting? And it's very, very, I don't know, like I can only speak from my experience, but it's infrequent. I'll say that. And so, but the way through that, not that, certainly not the right way, but a potential way that's different is just letting go of the certainty that anything you're ever doing is wrong, which is uncomfortable because then it's like there's no certainty with that. There's no right way. If this isn't wrong, then there is no right. And then you're again just left with yourself in uncertainty right now. And so I'd rather trade judging myself over and over and over for this thing, feeling shitty all the time, kind of going through this loop, as opposed to letting go of that thing, my false certainty about that thing being wrong. Because like everything's neutral in a sense. Like everything we do, we just make up ideas of, eating spinach is right and eating pizza is wrong and reading a book is right and scrolling on TikTok is wrong. It's like they're all equally uncertain, and certain situations there's going to be certain things that make more sense than others in certain situations if you're willing to pay attention. But so many of them are reinforced by just that idea that, this is a wrong thing and it makes me feel a certain way. And then I have to do something else to make me feel like I'm doing the right thing. Oftentimes is just the thing that is the cessation of that discomfort, which is another variation of the thing that we think is wrong, just because then it shifts to, well, now I feel shitty about myself and now I want to feel better about myself. What's the quickest way to do that? And so the alternative is just letting go of that certainty that you're doing something wrong as you're going through whatever you're doing.
Because you don't know. That's the thing. You can only do what you're doing. And what's funny about that is if you do it enough, you'll do it better. And that's always the case. It's just whatever it is. If you're doing it and you're like, I totally didn't do that right. Do it again. Do it again. And every time that you have a moment of, that could have been better, you just got better. Isn't that funny? Like, it's just repetition, time, and attention, right? Put in the time, put in more attention. It'll take less time. All right. Because attention is a superpower. As far as I'm concerned, the ability to just pay attention, put your shit aside, and just get into what you're doing. And it just hardwires into your body. This is something, so Andrew is looking into a Wing Chun class in New York, and it's very traditional Wing Chun. I'm very stoked because it's very, very close to the same lineage as I learned from. And so like we do practice and shit. It's going to be fun. And I'm not going to fuck up your training any, because different sifus, they teach different ways. But one thing you're going to learn is that you'll get better at it the less you think about your progress. The more you just shut up and repeat the moves, just shut up, repeat the moves. The more your brain's just like, I got that, and it'll just do it, right? But the more you're judging yourself, the more there's a you to learn the moves, the harder it is to learn them. You're expecting yourself to do the move perfectly. There's no way for you to do that, except maybe after 10,000 times, getting an idea of what perfect is. This is something that, and Amanda, this, learning the form, I was always told that you're going to do the form 1,000 times before you get it right. And then 1,000 more before you get it right again. Because it's all about the tiniest little details, and that requires attention and patience and just awareness. And that's what you're really mastering. You're not really mastering anything other than yourself. That's why it's fun to learn different things. Amanda, hi.
Hi, everyone. I am so glad that I can hear you. that was I went through a little bit of having not the time I expected, getting ready for this call. And I've done this 1,000 times, right? And so I had the expectation that we were just going to log in and everything was just going to be working perfectly. Nope, plan did not go as planned, but that was okay. And then it was funny because I'm like in a panic looking for headphones, and I'm finding headphones that don't have the right, that don't have like the right outlet. And so I sat down and I was like, shit. And I laughed because it was like, I know how to find headphones that work for my laptop. Also, something I've done 1,000 times, but that plan was not working. And I definitely felt myself having like this judgment, like this is something like this isn't as hard as I'm making it look. And it's like, it's not even as hard as it felt. It was just that we weren't putting enough attention on the activity of getting sound. It was just, I need sound now. How do I get it? And so I was rushing to the sound, to the end result, and not paying attention to the process to get there. And then I sat down, I was like, none of the headphones that I found just happened to have the right connection. And so I was like, I'm just going to restart the computer. I'm going to log out, log back in, and see if that just works. If not, we're about to get real up close and personal, guys, today. And we're going to be listening. But either way, it was like, I didn't have to be upset that it wasn't going the way that I expected it to go. It was, I trusted in my ability to troubleshoot, in my ability to just keep trying different approaches. And so I like the quote by, I think, what is it, Thomas Edison, who I think someone asks him, like, do you regret learning 1,000 ways, that didn't work? And he's like, no, I just learned 1,000 ways that just don't light the light bulb. So learning what doesn't work is just as important as learning what does work. When you're a gardener or you're just starting out and you have a series of plants that you quote unquote kill, it's like you're just learning what didn't work for the plant. You're learning what didn't work for that process. And you also learned a great way to make fertilizer, so like either way, you can change your perspective on what you classify as a failure and what you classify as a win. And the process towards that victory or task accomplished isn't always going to look the way that you expect it to, but it's like, so what? I didn't hear as much as I wanted to, but I get to replay this roundtable. I get to listen to it all over again. So it's not like the opportunity is always gone and lost forever. It's just doesn't always have to match the expectation that you created, because your expectation isn't an absolute. It's just an outline of a potential outcome. And so when I pick a direction, the direction doesn't come with guaranteed results. And that is, but I can still pick a direction and walk in it. I can still make a choice and explore it. And as I'm in the middle of that choice, we can make decisions, because it feels like there's nothing but opportunities. And so when you were talking, Levi, about doom scrolling, I think I had one of my most brilliant ideas in 2023 as a result of doom scrolling. But I was certainly judging it before that idea. But that idea was a reminder that everything is just an opportunity for anything to come out of it. So something that I judge as being unproductive or destructive or dismissive of the now, that is one way that I blow off steam. Everything doesn't have to always be, I am super conscious and we're super aware in every choice. And no, I don't always want to doom scroll, but no, I don't always want to put a microscope onto every single thought that I have. No, I don't always want to feel like I'm working just to be. I don't always want to feel like it has to be black or white, X or Y, this or that. It's just sometimes I feel like blowing off steam and sometimes I feel like kicking ass. And I am going to make both of those choices. And sometimes it's going to make sense to me and sometimes it's not going to make sense to someone else. But ultimately, I don't know. Every choice, I can't guarantee what the result's going to be of that. But sometimes it's going to look like doom scrolling and sometimes it's going to look like, creating an outline for a workshop. And I'm okay with the fact that I'm going to create and live through both experiences.
Well said. And if you're making this assumption that you're doing something wrong as you're doing it and thinking that, oh, this is certain and it's gonna come back. I've lost my train of thought. So I lost it like 3 times in our episode before, but how often with judging ourselves, making the assumption that it's that we're doing something wrong, incorrect with doom scrolling as opposed to doing the right thing. Yeah, because the thing we're doing is, oh man, that was a journey, is judging ourselves as we're doing the thing. Like we're still doing something. If we're thinking that we're doing something wrong, and not to say that judging yourself is something else that you're doing wrong, but it's like you're doubling down as opposed to letting go of that. And that's something that can then be quote unquote improved on, is being able to do something that you typically would judge yourself for doing and not doing it. Just like allowing yourself to do something that you deem to be unproductive or something that doesn't get you to this fucking made up spot in the future that you think you're getting, that's going to complete you. And then everything's going to be hunky dory and then nothing changes for forever. It's sometimes, if you are typically unwilling to relax or, doom scroll, if you've seen that as something that is like objectively bad, like, give yourself 10 minutes and doom scroll. Can you not judge yourself as you're doing that? Because that's a very habitual thing that comes into play with all different sorts of things. Because when you're then doing that, like, there's the opportunity, not that we're always looking for opportunities to improve, but opportunities to let go of something, because there is no right or wrong, and you never know, like you said, Amanda, which thing is gonna make you come across some perspective shift. I've had times where I'm like doom scrolling and judging myself, and then something hits me as I'm seeing a video, and it make a video out of that or whatever. And you never know, you have this idea of the right thing to do to get to the thing that you want, and even if you're maintaining the thing that you want, you still don't know what's in between there, even if you're holding on to that. So it could be doing something that you would assume would be unproductive. And as you just not stop judging yourself so goddamn much as you're going through stuff, things have a way of making more sense.
Yeah. And you get more out of them, right? Like, that's the whole thing. You're just living for yourself, and you're paying attention to it because you're living for yourself. I noticed there was some reverse and switching happening, and it was almost like an Uno game among the hands that are currently up in our roundtable episode. And so I'm going to pass it over to Amanda, who seems to have come out on top or possibly on the bottom of this exchange, depending on how you look at it.
I don't know, both can feel like a victory. Oh my goodness. No, I definitely got excited because I love the switcheroo, because I had an expectation. I was like, look, I'm excited to hear what Marie's gonna say. It's like, well, I'm gonna have to wait a little longer for that, which is totally fine. I love it. I wanted to follow up on how, shower ideas. The fact that, you can be stumped, writer's block, you're stumped, solving a project, and then you go take a shower just because, maybe it's been a little while that you've been trying to think of an idea. Maybe we're a little funky and you notice, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to go take a shower. And then you go take a shower, and all of a sudden you get hit with this idea. And why is that? Because you fucking relax. You relaxed in the shower and the idea came to you. People say that sometimes they go for a run, and they go for a run so that they're so focused on their body, they can't block the idea with thoughts about not thinking of the idea. And it's so crazy how, you think, that you need to just always be like that. Idea to implementation to it is linear, and it's not always. And so I love when we are in the shower and something hits you, and it's like, that's amazing. Now you're not going to spend the next 12 hours in the shower only because that's where ideas hit you. Oh, it's just knowing that you were so relaxed in the same way that you relax when you're doom scrolling. And so I agree with you, Andrew. I've had so many ideas come to me when I'm doing something that I was judging for being unproductive. And it's like, yes, but you also were giving yourself space from that goal. You were giving yourself space from accomplishing whatever you needed to accomplish. And in that space, you let yourself relax. And in that relaxation came the idea. And so it is all the ways that we blow off steam seem just as crucial, just as important, just as vital as the moments that are scheduled and productive, but is also being careful not to think that it's supposed to be black or white, that you're always supposed to love it, that you're always going to be motivated, that you're always going to feel excited. No, it's that you're going to be working when you don't want to. You're going to be relaxed when you feel like you should be tense. It's just this, it almost feels counterintuitive, but I do appreciate when I'm not being productive, when I'm not trying to do something, and how valuable that nothing that I thought was worthless really is. That nothing feels like it's potential that I'm not trying to turn into anything else. And so I'm valuing the nothings a lot more than I used to value all the somethings.
Well said. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because when you're trying to live up to what you should be doing, right, there is immediately a stress, and that ends up distorting everything that you would be doing otherwise. Whereas if you just go through whatever it is you're going through, like, let's just say that you have an addiction to something, or you have a distraction you keep leaning on, or perhaps you're going through some codependency or something like that. going through that process will inevitably lead you to a point where you're just sitting in it and you go, well, fuck, I'm just choosing to sit in this. I'm just choosing to do this over and over again. As Levi was saying earlier, like, fuck, I've just been doing this over and over again, and I can do something else. So why am I not doing something else? But at that point, it takes on the tone of being your choice. Whereas if somebody gets in there with an idea that that's not what you should be doing, you should be doing something else, and you start telling yourself you should be doing something else, now you're judging yourself and you're actually getting in the way of the process that you would have been learning from. And so the problem just ends up transferring to something else later in life. Maybe you do build yourself a strict regimen so that way you're not sitting on the couch all day. How long do you think that's going to last? You know, because when life fucking falls out from underneath you, when all of a sudden you're not feeling so fucking in control, you're going to go back and sit on the goddamn couch, or you're going to find somewhere else to sit, metaphorically, right? And it's just because the problem was never addressed, because you never had a chance to go through it, right? This is the problem with high school, I think, is that a lot of these kids would have an opportunity to go through a lot of this developmental stuff, like the self-judgment and all that shit, if they were just left the fuck alone. Just given some space to go through it, rather than us going, well, we got to guide you through it. You should take this class. You should understand this. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. Or we're educating parents and teachers on how to train our children. And it's like, just give them some fucking space. You know, and we would learn. We would process this stuff. It's like, well, my kid's just playing video games all day. It's like, okay, well, a good part of that might be the fact that you're judging your kid all the time and they're just tuning you out, right? So maybe it's not the problem with the kid. Maybe it's not the problem with the video game. Maybe it's a lack of understanding of what they're running away from. And if worse, maybe it's okay that they run away from that. I don't know if anybody here, again, I brought this up earlier, remembers being a teenager. But about 15, 16 years old, sitting in your head was a fucking merry hell. There was so much going on, so many emotions, so many thoughts, so many possibilities, so many fears, and our amygdala was growing faster than the rest of our brain. So our fear response was heightened to like 1,000%. Holy fuck. You know, yeah, let that kid play a video game. Fuck, just leave him alone. You know, and it's just because, again, like, trust our intuition, but we don't. We assume that if somebody is left to just sit and do nothing, they're going to do it forever. And that just seems stupid. Because I've never seen that. You know, unless, again, somebody is nagging at them all the fucking time, in which case now their biggest problem is just dealing with the nagging. It's not about what they're doing. It's not their choice anymore. Right now it's a battle. Now it's not even about their choice. So yeah, it really just comes down to that. Live for you, always. I love the fact that we keep coming back to this same underlying theme, but it really is that. And it's so weird that it seems so profound, and yet we've just spent so little time doing it. You know, we thought we were doing it, but we were always living within what we perceived to be this grand scheme of things. And with that goes all of this weight and pressure and judgment, the right way, the wrong way, all of that stuff. Whereas if you just narrow it down to what you're doing right now, you're probably just sitting in a room. Maybe you're going for a walk. Maybe you're doing your laundry. That's what you have to deal with right now. That is the sum of the problems that you have at this exact moment. Unless something's chasing you, in which case, for the love of God, put the podcast down. Run.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so when you look at all that stuff, like everything you were saying about being 15, 16, like it makes a lot of sense why there's a wake of that ripples throughout our lives. Like we are just infatuated, and just all of that shit is driven home for years and years and years and years. Like think about yourself, basically, is the constant for years. And here's all the reasons to do so, because you got to measure yourself. You got to check in. You got to do this. You got to stay in control. You got to keep making sure you're doing the right thing. Like, no wonder it's such a habitual thing. No wonder it's so rare to get a cessation of thought for a bit. It's like fucking pummeled into us being the right thing to do for like 20 years. And so, of course, there's going to be this natural sort of progression through our lives until we are willing to look at that, until we are willing to take it upon ourselves to recognize that maybe we don't know. Maybe we don't know what's to come. Maybe we don't know what's best for us, but it makes a lot of fucking sense that we do it so often given that. And so that almost is relaxing in a sense, which is helpful almost. It's this assumption that I should be doing things better than I am is so constant, and it makes sense because that's a component of that mentality, but then it kind of gives some grace as to how much pressure we put on ourselves, like, oh, I should not be thinking about myself right now, which is like another way of reinforcing thinking about myself and the reasons to do so. Because it's like when I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable, I can be certain about that. I can be certain about my perception of myself, which is why the discomfort comes up when someone sees us differently than we see ourselves. And but yeah, fuck, given all that, those first 2 decades makes a lot of sense that our society is very wrapped up in our perceptions of ourselves. Murray?
Yeah. Wow. Appreciate this conversation, and it is funny to keep coming back to the same recognitions, the same things. But like I think Andrew or Ray said earlier, it hits deeper as you experience it more, and that comes with practice. Like we could talk all you want, but like once you're actually experiencing it, you're realizing like, oh, okay, I see what happens here when I relax more and pay attention and what shows up. And it's just interesting because we're so fixated on that productivity. Wow, words. Okay. We're going to do that today. That's fun. Being productive. Let's just change how I'm saying it. And what that even looks like, because it's just so funny because I find myself, like we were saying before, the same thing with doom scrolling. Algorithms in general are showing you basically your mental state. It's what's been fun about it. It's like it's basically showing you not mental state, but like what's showing up for you right now, because it's basically like it's hearing what's happening, right? Like it's taking that and then what you're watching over and over again. So it's taking that all into account. So it's like showing you. So I'll look through and like, show me what is showing up for me right now. And it's fun to play with in that way. And also, like you said, like relax into it instead of judge yourself for it. Because absolutely, I came up with many lessons that I do at school because of quote unquote doom scrolling. Like I came across a song that I teach the kids all the time about it being okay. It was just this girl who came up with a song, I'm not gonna sing it right now, that'd be loud. But it's just like a helpful for a reminder for people was the intention that but it became like a helpful tool of like, if you take a deep breath and relax, you'll be okay. Like it's gonna be okay. That it might not feel okay now, but it will be okay because we're here. That's all we know. That's all we can ever know. And the line that I was thinking about today, I don't know, but I'm here to learn. But really, I don't know, but I'm here. Because we're talking about how often people will think that they do know, and the more that they feel so strongly about I do know this, the less shows up for them, the more limits they end up putting on themselves, because you're seeing that's only the sliver again, Amanda. Only there's like, if we focus too much on what we think we know, we end up limiting ourselves and and blinding ourselves to what could be so much more, which is what ends up happening the more I let go. I let go of I need to be anything. I need to be anybody. I need to know anything. I need to do anything. And then what happens? I end up, doing real cool stuff and learning a lot and getting more opportunities to, do things that I've been wanting to do, and like watching how I can kind of shift, shift, shift your, whole perspective and whole experience. It's really cool. I've been taking a lot of different notes, and it's fun to look at like just the various words that came up. Oh yeah, another thing, notes that came up for me that I like. Why I originally rose my hand, I think when we were talking about Wang Chung. No, I feel like I always say that wrong, but is that correct? Okay.
Wing Chun. I did the same thing when I first said it to Ray, and he was like, "It's Wing." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Great. Okay, and of just like doing something or practicing something for so long to get to a point which you're not even going to get to like that perfect point. But I think of the perfect pose or whatever. I think of how, I mean, there's so many things, and we talk about this too, that we've learned that we don't even realize that we've learned or had to take time to practice. So like I've even been practicing how I walk still, because we think that we reach a point like we learned it and we're done with it, right? So it's like, no, because you can always still master the craft of even having a conversation or do like all of it. We're still, you never stop learning. So I've been playing with paying attention more when I walk and how I'm noticing like my feet touch the ground and playing with that and realizing there's ways that we could still, improve. I hate doing that, but learn, I guess, and grow more in terms of anything, like even going back to eating. Like I feel like I had to, I didn't have to, but I wanted to pay more attention to what I was eating, because I was just like, what happens when I do this? Even just like eating a meal, doesn't matter what it is. If it's a chicken sandwich versus like a salad or whatever, but am I paying attention, like you were saying, I think, Andrew, am I paying attention and tasting what's happening right now? Because when I slow down and actually do that, then I'm not just eating to consume, to get like, move to one thing to the next. It's just like I'm eating it because I'm hungry, and I'm eating it because I want to enjoy it, and I'm trying to approach it in that way versus just doing the thing just to do the thing. Like how can I do the thing and do it and really show up for it, and I know, and these are the same things we've been saying, and it's just fun to continue to practice and continue to understand and not know and learn and explore and be unsure about. It's just been fun.
Yeah, well said. And I appreciate you combining the words and laughing about it, because even when you do that, like that relaxes me a little bit more. And it's so funny how, because I'll do the same shit and immediately like judge myself or think I'm doing something incorrect or wrong. And then, but when I experience it and see someone else do it, it's like, all right, that's relaxing. Like, all right, so if the end game, not that there's an end game, but like if there's a thing that it's all about and it's relaxing, then and that's maybe, say I have an intention going into this to like help someone or whatever. I'm not saying that I do. I'm just saying hypothetically, entirely hypothetically. Then me combining words, stumbling, laughing at myself, whatever, forgetting what I'm saying, and like going through the journey of trying getting it back is like, that's like above anything any insight I could possibly share, anything I could say. There's no thing that I could say more perfectly. If anything, a lot of times if you're fucking perfect all the time, it makes people wish that they could do that too, and then they're tense. And so like, fuck, it's so convoluted. Like it's so backwards. It's so funny. And I resonate too with the walking thing, which I had in my head as you finished talking, and it went away as soon as you stopped. And I was like, oh yeah, that was another thing. Like, it'll come back eventually with walking. I've been doing the same thing because I noticed how much my I've mentioned this before, but just like my pelvis is tilted in a certain direction. So I've been more cognizant of that. But what I'm realizing too is that now there's certain other parts that are getting pulled or tugged on, like with, just in this example, like a pelvic tilt like this, which is forward, then it's like your quads are going to be tighter and then your hamstrings are going to be more stretched. So I've been working on just like being cognizant of it being more level. And now I'm feeling more stretch on my quads, which is then pulling on my knees a little bit. So I'm getting a little bit of discomfort with my knees. And now I'm like just realizing that because I've been feeling that for a little while, but I'm noticing how much more even it is. But over, 28 years, you're walking in a certain way, those muscles are going to be pretty fucking locked in to the position that they've been in for your whole life. And so with that, you were mentioning getting to, not that it's the right thing or you're getting to the right way of doing it. It's just like this continuous process of things to do, like focusing on how you walk, for example. Maybe, I notice something, whatever, my quads relax a little bit more. I notice some imbalances. Like there's a lot of certain muscle weakness that comes with that because it's heavily relied upon. Everything that I do is like heavily relied upon my quads. So then maybe other muscles are weaker. So then strengthening those is then what alleviates some of the pressure off the knee that's tugging because of that. And then, maybe there's a, back and forth something else to do. And it's just an option to do no differently than fucking doom scrolling or, reading a book or anything or talking to someone, but they're all on the table all the time. And they're all just options. It's not like, oh, I'm going to get to the point where I'm walking perfectly. It's like, yeah, give it some time and attention here, focus on it very intently, and then you're going to keep walking around. Keep that in mind. Just feel what you're feeling because all those things are happening right now. Like the things that you're feeling are happening right now. So stay here and things start, sort of unfolding in a certain way. Same thing when I realized like fucking half my body was really tight. And that kind of went hand in hand with recognizing, the other things, the way that I walked. And so it's just kind of, I don't know, it's kind of cool. Like it's kind of exciting that, all right, I built up a lot of shit ways of doing things for a long time, starting to notice them. Oh, then you can, chip through and work through. But so many people make the assumption that this is who I am, this is what I am, and I'm not going to change for the rest of my life. And they miss out on the opportunities to, see things a little bit differently, explore a little bit of things. And we think of our lifetime as this one thing, but really we're living sort of like a bunch of different lifetimes within our, human lifespan, even in that. Nothing to say that, the character that you've thought about for a very long time has to be the same story over and over, or maybe there doesn't have to be so much of a story. Maybe you can not think about it so much. And then of course, it naturally starts to shift and change as you start prioritizing your experience just right now and feeling whatever it is coming up. Marie?
Yeah, totally. I originally, what sparked my interest of going back, raising my hand was when you acknowledged that in those moments of when, people, when I just did, I was like unable to speak, essentially, when that shows up, that it's almost relieving and relaxing to like watch others experience that. And it's the same, it happens definitely as I watch like your podcasts and like, or lives and stuff that are showing up and people who are, doing this regularly and that still happens. Beautiful. Like you brought up, I think, what's his face, the actor that you were like, holy shit, say the name.
Yeah, Brad Pitt.
Yep. He and then like, so it's always been, so when I was younger, I remember I really liked going on a roller coasters only with my friend who was like much more afraid of them than I was. And it was funny to see that because I was like, it would make me feel better seeing her really like process all of that and like go. So I'm like, okay, at least I'm not there. Or I guess that's what it was. I haven't been on a roller coaster in years, and mostly because I choose not to. But when I would, it was just like helpful for me to process and be okay with knowing that, other people are afraid. And it's funny because I just read a story about that with my students that like, you know, basically you're not the only one dealing with the shit. Okay. Like we all get disappointed. It's going through the feelings. Like it's like we all, have these moments and you can always come back to it. It's okay though. It's okay because, it's happening. And we recognize that we don't know what it means, but we know we don't know. No. No, we do know that we're here. And oh yeah, and the comment you brought up about lifetimes, I say that all the time in terms of I feel like I've lived like many lifetimes within this quote unquote one lifetime, whatever the fuck that even means, because time. Because it feels more like, because when I think back of myself as a kid, I really don't feel like I hold on to that many memories, and it doesn't. And I wondered recently if that's because I tend to like not hold on to things that don't feel like me anymore. So if I feel less, it feels like less relevant to my experience currently. So it feels like if it's less relevant to where I'm at right now, I'm not going to retain it. I'm not going to, I don't even, I've moved on from it. I've been there and now I'm here. And so I'm here. And so it's just interesting because I feel like I've had so many phases already and I'm still like Jesus. That's what bothers me about when people, I'm around my age, whatever time, but will say they're old. How can that logically make sense, man? How can that make sense? How? I have a 90-year-old, there's many old people, right? But I have a 90-year-old aunt or great aunt at this point. She's interesting because she was like one of the first people that showed me like, that the body or the experience that shows up for you doesn't have to limit who you are. So like I was never like, oh, she's an old person. She always says like, I hate old people because they're all like, everything's the worst, blah, blah, blah. And she just will show up. She gets all dressed up and, shows out and lives each day. She travels, tries to like, she's not being held back by the rules that we've created in my life and in life. What? And so then I think of what I'm seeing now, even with my own family, the people like my mom and my uncle and people who are at the age now where I like first knew my grandparents. If I'm thinking about that, I'm like, oh, this is like, they're not technically grandparents, or my uncle is, but my mom isn't. But she's like, I feel like they're already limiting themselves on saying like I'm old. So once that label comes into play, it seems to really, it's like I've chosen to label myself as this, and I'm only now what's showing up for them is old things like going to the hospital because their body isn't functioning. They're letting go of not letting go, actually, it's the opposite, but like just limiting themselves. I feel like it's just another attachment. It's another label that whatever we get fixated on, it tends to, I keep saying limiting because I guess, yeah, it's just, I don't even know how I got here. I'm thinking that's where I was just going, but I'm here. So that's all I got.
All said. Yeah. It's like we don't even recognize how much we're limiting ourselves right? And it's funny too, because you feel like I don't know where this came from. And again, I do the same sort of stuff. And I like had a thought about exactly what you were saying. And I wonder about that, like how often I think I should keep talking. And then it's like I'm not gonna keep talking, and how often it's just like this assumption that this is the right thing to do. And I don't even notice when someone else trails off, and then they start thinking like, oh, I trailed off, and I was like, you could have not said that, and I would have had zero clue whatsoever. And so anyway, with the the tension, like we don't even realize it's almost like that slow build throughout our life that we don't even realize how tense and rigid we are, and all the things that we pile on top of the way that just trying to reinforce that we know something. Like, oh my God, literally fucking anything. It's like just anything. I'll know anything. My biggest, concerns, worrying about myself, anything. Like I'll settle just so I can know something. And it's so interesting. And then over time, as that builds, as there's the illusion that you can know things, it's like you got to keep investing in that. And that reminds me of growing up in school. The response, I don't know, to a question was like, that wasn't allowed. Like it's straight up which is fucked, right? Because I think back to like middle school or high school, and we're kind of taught to bullshit, like, which I'm not saying is, a bad thing to know how to do from time to time and something like that. But that's like the right thing to do. Oh, you don't have an answer? Just make something up. Just fake it till you make it, instead of admitting, maybe I don't know. And that being, uncertainty right there. It's actually taught that you must know. And you can't admit if you don't, you must know. And even if you don't, like, make up something to say, just say something. And how much that reinforces, like, it's not okay to not know. It's not okay to not know what to say. And I realized that, like, because for me, that was a big one growing up. Like, I feel like I have nothing to say. I don't know what to say. And the thought that's wrong, like the thought that's incorrect, because that's what really reinforces that. It's the continued assumption that that's a wrong thing to do. It's just as much on the table as anything. But if you're holding on to that, there's going to be that weight. And I notice it, even if I am talking a lot, it'll still be the thing that I hear when I stop talking. It's like, you should say more. You can't not do that. And so it's rooted in that. It's not rooted in having more to say. It's letting go of the assumption that there's something wrong with having nothing to say, or with not knowing, or just being willing to sit in yourself, let go of that assumption, kind of like we were saying before with doom scrolling. Like, let yourself doom scroll for a little bit and see if you can not judge yourself for doing it. Like there's a balance with all things, and we're always kind of, swinging back and forth between that pendulum, but there's not a right way to do it. And letting go of that at least allows you to relax through whatever you're doing. And then you find out reality has a way of, being there and making sense when you're just paying attention to it. You go into a situation, you don't know what to say. It's like you pay attention and you find out things you could say, like, because you could say anything. But if you're holding on to the idea that there's a right and a wrong thing to say, then it's going to be, siloed a bit. But Amanda?
I absolutely love that you brought us here, Marie. So I just want to, just for the record, I just want to say that because it is so interesting to see how fast, like, we just want to say, like, oh, this can't make sense, or like just to be so hard on ourselves. And I love the concept that you brought up about people that are young at heart, people that have old souls, people that, like, your friends and family members that are like, oh, I'm old. And what I think, how I interpret that sentence, I'm old, is I've settled on this idea that there's nothing to be enthusiastic about, that there's nothing to show up for, that there's nothing to be curious about. They're settling on the idea that old means no passion, no curiosity, no excitement. And so when I see people that are young at heart, or young in their minds. They're the people that are vibrantly showing up, excited, they're curious. It's all of those things. But that's not limited to an age group. You can be curious for your whole life. You can be enthusiastic for your whole life experience. It doesn't matter if you are young or old. And when we think about the same extreme, but the other end of it, a old soul is a young person that is holding on and settling to the idea that to be mature is to be older, to that they're prioritizing seriousness over the natural maybe rebellious nature that they might feel, and so it's like, no, I'm mature, I get it, and so I think it's hilarious when I see both extremes. And when I see people in the middle, when I see people challenging the typical approach, because there is no young or old. It's that we are in this process, and it looks like there are stages within this process physically, but there are so many people that quote unquote look older than their age, look younger than their age. And so people don't always look old or look young or act old or act young. It's like you have so many combinations of people out there, and it's valuable to see other people when they stumble, because in one way, I love that they proved me wrong. I love that on one level, I was thinking that, to stumble, to not be able to be articulate means that I'm not an effective communicator, that I'm not smart, or I am not something when I stumble. And so when I see someone stumble, I love it. And I love it because they just called my fears bluff. And they did it beautifully, fantastically, unbeknownst to them, that I was proven wrong, because they showed me that an option that I didn't know existed exists. And not only does that option exist, someone took it right in front of me. And so I am inspired when I see someone that challenges a status quo, or just lives, to the beat of their own drum, which is sometimes an underhanded insult or a credit to someone's audacity to say, fuck it, I'm going to do it anyways. I don't care how it looks. And so I absolutely love that in many ways I have lived for an idea of what I thought Amanda is, or what I thought adulthood was, or what I thought seriousness or maturity was. And all of those are just ideas, because I'm going to be so silly sometimes that it does not make any adult sense. And then I'm going to be so serious sometimes that I will stress myself into a cold. I will panic myself into a headache. I will do all of those things. But most recently, I guess the way that I kind of view it now is that I'm not living for me, but I'm living for the experience of what feels like me. Because when I think about the times where like I don't do things that I would say old Amanda does, it's like, it's not that that's not me, it's that I don't value the same things anymore. So we're not living for model number 563, like, fuck, man, I can't keep up with all the models that I feel like, all the lifetimes I feel like I go through. But it feels like I definitely prioritize what I value. And so sometimes I equate what I value to my identity. I feel like painting, all of a sudden I'm an artist, and I value what artists value. But it's like, am I really an artist? Because, sometimes I don't want to paint a damn thing, and we want to type away all of our thoughts. Are we now a writer? Have we abandoned the life of an artist? And it's like, no, it's just that you value whatever you value. And based on that value, your life, your identity, your expression of you is going to look different. But it doesn't mean anything, and you can change it as often as you want, because there are no rules when it comes towards the experience of you experiencing you.
Well said. And as soon as we're settling upon some idea, it's going to create some fucking distortion between. And real quick before I pass to Levi, I just want to say with the age thing, because I've been reading Ageless Body, Timeless Mind by Deepak Chopra, that there are actually 3 types of ages. there's chronological age, biological, and psychological. And so biological is the number, and that's pretty much the only one that most people focus on. But then, you hear someone say, well, I'm 50, but I feel 30, or I'm 40, but I feel 70. That's the psychological age, like how much, what you feel like you are. And then the biological age is what your body markers show. And so it's funny how we put so much weight on chronological, despite it being the worst indicator of like reality too. Because if you think of your lifetime, you don't know how many years you got. And so, someone who lives to 60 versus someone who lives to 80, it's like 40 is going to be 40 to the person turning 60, or there's like 20 years. I don't know where I was going with that part, but like there's 20 years left when you're 40 versus 20 years left when you're 60, and you could feel same exact way. So we just put so much weight, and then there's all the fucking crazy ass shit that comes with a certain age and all these assumptions of the place you should be in life. And I really like that clip that we were able to get out from the DU Real. Shout out DU Real, by the way, Jackie and Amanda. Live stream every Friday at I believe it's 4 p.m. Eastern time. Fuck yeah. That clip where you were talking about, like, you had all these assumptions of how life would be, and you're not in almost any of them, and yet you're the happiest you've ever been. So how fucked is that we hold on to those assumptions about, the right thing to be doing at a certain age, and how much pressure it puts on us, and how much it shifts our priority. Like, I have friends at this point now, getting to that big 3-0 number, and there's all of these assumptions about it, and so it's shifting their focus. They're prioritizing less so the things that they're going through, and more so the assumptions about what they should be going through, or where they should be at in life right now. And it totally, oh man, it's so fucking wild how we do that shit. But again, more desire for certainty. The right way to live is being at this point. This is my check mark right here, 20, 30, 40, 50. That's where I check in and measure myself. It's like, God damn, it's like you're a moment older. You're not a decade older. Levi, over to you.
I resonate a lot with this age conversation as well, and also the clip, man, that was incredible. That's exactly what it feels like to me. I'm literally like, in my old view of me, I'm a failure. I'm like, it's so strange, but it's like, it's awesome. I don't know what's going to happen next. And I just noticed, like, whenever I kind of let leave, I kind of try to figure out, what options we have. It's so limited. It's like, oh yeah, we can, go back to the old job, and like, it's just chill a little bit and just see what happens, and then things happen. That's the funny thing, things that I hadn't thought about, and stuff like that. Yeah, and also just to comment on, like, this, when people kind of get a little bit older, like, for example, my parents, it's like, it's so funny because it's like, I feel it's an excuse, like, okay, oh, but we don't want to, like, do this because we're old now, and I just keep pointing out, like, you may live for another 40 years, and they do not like to hear that. It's like, it's like, that is that is uncomfortable. I can see it, but it's funny, and it's like, even my grandmother is like, I don't know, 93 or something. It's like, I'm telling them, oh, she can live for another 10 years. You never know. And it's just, anyway, it's so much potential there, like, even at this old age. So yeah,
So much potential for life to be lived. It's so interesting how someone will get frustrated at you for bringing that up, because then it makes them question the way that they're existing, because they're just making an assumption, and how much we'll just take that assumption over actually being uncertain and being here. Like, oh, I have this assumption that this is the right way to live, and if I have potentially 40 more years, then maybe I'll have to do something else. Like, maybe I'll have to do something else. And you got 40 years. Isn't that exciting? Marie?
Absolutely.
Oh.
I wanted to mention very quickly, because we're in a roundtable episode, but we're also going into season 6 very shortly, and we have a viral video contest. I don't know if we've mentioned it yet in this episode, but I wanted to mention it very quickly for everybody who's listening. If you would like to make a video about dualistic unity, about your experience with dualistic unity, about your beef with dualistic unity, whatever it might be, if you'd like to take a clip of dualistic unity, many clips of dualistic unity, whatever it is, make a video, post it to social media, and tag us in it. And as of February 1st or February 5th, somewhere in that gap when we're at the Virginia Beach mini retreat, we will look at which video has the most views. And then the creator of that video with the most views will get a free ticket to our California mini retreat, which is happening on April 11th to April 15th near Big Bear Lake in California. That's going to be a lot of fun. So the winning ticket is worth about $1,700 US, I think. So it's a hell of a prize. We of course appreciate all of the work that you do to help spread the word about DU. So I'm really excited about this contest. I just wanted to bring it up quickly because I'm fucking pumped.
Oh yeah, likewise. That's going to be exciting to see because yeah, that's a healthy prize right there, and it's going to be a blast of a weekend on top of that. So excited to see the videos out there. If someone, if you've never made a video on social media and got questions, like feel free to shoot us a message, shoot me a message on Instagram, on Discord. If you got questions, happy to answer some stuff. But at the same time, whatever comes to mind first, whatever way of making a video, there's no right way to make a video. And that's where the most authentic stuff's going to come from. That's where that creativity comes from. Something novel, something new, from not asking anyone what the right way to do it is, which is exciting. So it means if you've never made a video before, then you have very little things telling you the right way to do it. See where that runs. You may come up with an entirely new video concept, which would be dope. Marie?
Levi, I appreciated you when you said the excuse part of like, you find that it feels like an excuse when, either relatives or people will say, oh, I'm old, so I can't do this, and then I'm old or whatever. It does feel like an excuse, like a push off of like responsibility of doing something or of doing something differently, like of change, of actually making a change to their life. Like I know, personally, if I feel like my mom will often do this. And I have hesitancy. It's funny as I'm noticing. I'm like, oh, this is live. This is not a Patreon call, right? But like, please, it's fine. But like, she'll often do the like, I'm old, and it'll feel like an excuse of her not making a change to her life. Like if I'm old, then I can't do this and I can't do that, and it's really too late. I love that. It's too late for me to make this change now. And it's like, and what skill? Like what would be too late? Like, because that often, just like when school ends, right? When you're done getting whatever kind of degrees or whatever you end up stopping, it feels like a lot of times, just like everything else, you feel like you need to stop learning, like you need to stop growing and changing and being open in general. And it ends up, it's been my word of the day, limiting yourself. It ends up, but at the same time, I've had to recognize that it's okay that my mom does that, like that I don't need her to be anything. And so as much as I'll have those tendencies to be like, she could be doing this. Of course she could be. And I try to offer that that's an option. But it's also okay that they're not, whatever I feel like, like any should, like what can I be doing, like I can be looking at myself too. And that's often what I've been actually doing, is because I think I also talked about this with Amanda and June and Jaden when we all got together this weekend, of like when we're trying to change the world or change outwardly, right? outwardly, you know, what's happening. And we had that tendency to feel like to fix things, and to, like, oh, I want to just, you know, change the world and do, but what I've learned is that when I'm focused on, like, what can I do? What am I doing for myself, and how am I showing up? I'll realize the more opportunities I give myself to learn, and often people are picking up on the shifts too. And not necessarily, it's the ripples, you know, like, of just, you don't realize how much, you know, it's happening and how much it's impacting, but it really isn't about that either. It just happens to happen, which is cool. But it's just because you're getting in touch with the whole experience. And when I just get in touch with what this whole experience is, instead of labeling it, judging it, perceiving it to be anything other than what it is, then then what? What was supposed to come after that? That was great. I don't even know what I said before that. That's hilarious. I I just know that it's along the lines of relaxing and paying attention. No, and I don't know. It's not about trying to fix things. It's not about trying to make things better, because that's just another concept. That's just another narrative we've created in all this, that we think we know what's good and what's best. How could we? We don't know anything. So, like, who are you to make judgments of that? It's like, just relax. See what shows up. See what shows up when you stop overanalyzing everything and stop getting in your own way. Goodness.
Yeah, I was going to say, over that hump, there's less telling you that you can't relax, right? Without being able to be sure of anything, all of those reasons that you're not relaxed don't make as much sense, because you can't actually know why you're holding on to them so tightly. And there's less telling you that you can't just right now relax. Even the immediacy of feeling uncomfortable, you know, like we talked about, like forgetting what you're saying, and all of a sudden all that buildup comes up, and all that like panic and worry and concern. It's like, yeah, but there's nothing wrong with doing that. So you can relax then, and then that shifts your experience entirely. And so with other people, you know, I think that's, I don't know, part of this is just habitually thinking there's a right way to live. It's like, I want to, you know, I start realizing this, like, this is the right way. Yeah. And if it is the right way, then I got to tell everyone about it, because that validates my perspective that it's the right way. And I got to talk about it all the time. It's got to be the only thing that I ever bring up. And I got to convince everyone who doesn't recognize it that it is the case, and they're not what they think, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, whoa, all right. That's not how it plays out. Like, if there's not a right way, then it's just, then, oh, fuck, then there's not another side to that. Like, there's just not a right way. And so then just being with someone, let go of your assumptions that they're doing something wrong and you're doing something right, because that's another way that I used to feel better. Like, oh, at least I'm not living like them. Oh, they're suffering so much. Look at them suffering over there because they're holding on to their assumptions about shit. Oh, here I am, savior, coming in to save the day, save them from their suffering, as I'm just, you know, reinforcing everything that's creating my own. And so, but I find with people that the more I've just been relaxed, the more conversations have a way of shifting towards, you know, maybe something that I a year ago would have tried to fucking control my way to, because there is relaxation. Like, you're the environment, you are the situation. What environment's going to help someone relax? A relaxed environment, or an environment that's tense as fuck? Trying to get them somewhere, trying to convince someone of something, get you to the right thing or the right path. And we've been talking a little bit about spiritual snake oil. It's like, that's very heavily invested in there being a right way. Without that, you're just left with your experience moment to moment. There isn't so much certainty. There isn't that way, that you know, teat to suckle on to feel better, and the certainty about myself doing the right thing. And you're just left with that. But in that is so much opportunity. You know, there's not all the things, all the fucking buffers telling you you can or can't do certain things. Then you can try new things far more easily, and then you can fucking live your life, actually live it, instead of just, holding on super tightly until you die. Amanda.
Oh my goodness. I really am appreciating just excuses coming up, and the example of our family or friends can give us of, I'm too old, but it's like I have made so many excuses to myself. Oh, I can't do that. I'm too young. Oh, I can't do that. I don't know. Oh, I can't do that. I'm going to look stupid. Oh, I can't do that. I'm not experienced. Oh, I can't do that because of whatever. It is like, I'm too short. I'm too tall. I'm too skinny. I'm too fat. I'm too old. I'm too young. It's like, man, excuses come in every shape, size, and in every variety, because we're the ones that make them. And so we're so perfect, or we have such an ability to make excuses that are so customized for us. And it's like, of course they're customized. I'm the one that's making them. And all of these excuses, are they all just really limits that I believe that I'm trapped by? I've done certain things that, a coworker told me, like, I didn't even know you could do that. And I was like, neither did I. I just went for it. I didn't know it was going to stick. I had no idea it would even work. I just did it anyways, right? But there was the risk of it blowing up in my face. There was the risk of it not working. There was the risk of it not working and me getting judgment or feedback from my coworkers or my work environment that was inappropriate, that was selfish, that was whatever, like whatever you do can always get framed in a way that seems negative from someone else, right? And so I wonder if all of the excuses that anyone ever makes, they're really just limits you believe in. Because I have done things that I was told someone my age couldn't do, someone with my background couldn't do, someone with my gender couldn't do. And I did many things anyways. And I've seen other people do things that question what I thought was an excuse or a limitation, and they make me question. I was like, oh, I didn't even realize we could go in that direction. Wait a minute. That also, I could say that was an excuse, that I didn't think that direction existed, but maybe really it's just a limit. It's just a limitation that I believe in. And so, it feels like the excuses are almost like individual snake oil that I sell to myself, right? The product doesn't work, but I still bought it. I still keep buying it. And it doesn't do what it says, because the limit only maintains itself if I give it that weight, if I give it that value or that power. And so something that I told myself was a limitation, is just that maybe I don't believe anymore, is just snake oil that I'm not willing to sell myself anymore. And so excuses are everywhere and I make them. And so when I see other people making them, I'm like, okay, maybe that's not an excuse that I happen to make, but give me 5 seconds and I can come up with my own list. And that's okay though. I make limits because I live in an environment that emphasizes limitations all the time. So why wouldn't I also create limitations? Like it just makes sense that I do that. And it's just a part of this process. So when I think about the excuses that I still make now about, the creating content, right? So you guys brought up Do You Real, and I feel very insecure about that because I have never been a podcast person. I have never made content. In fact, if you go to any of my social media pages right now, there is zero posts. So I am a podcaster with zero content out there. That makes no sense, and yet here I am, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna do it eventually. But it's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I made an excuse one time or 1,000 times. It doesn't matter if anyone else does that and their excuses look like mine. It's just something that we do. And when I notice it, I can there's an opportunity there. I don't know what I'll do with that opportunity, but anytime that I notice an excuse or limitation, there's an opportunity to either believe it and run with it, or to drop it and run in a different direction. And all I'm just noticing is that I appreciate the way that I process any opportunity, because it's just a part of it. So it's not going to always make sense. I'm not always going to know what what it is going to lead to next, but that's okay. Like, no matter what happens, it's okay. I'm okay. And it's certainly not going to always be pleasant, but I don't need it to. It's just, it's we're here, and I'm glad to be.
Exactly. You don't know what's happening. Stop trying to convince yourself you do, because you're just getting in your own way. Continue forward, try to relax, and don't take yourself too seriously. It's more or less all this comes down to. It's just that we have to keep reminding ourselves that, because we have developed this habit of taking ourselves so seriously, of taking our assumptions very seriously, of panicking and grasping for something to stop us from this feeling of drowning. And so once we get over that, everything becomes delightfully simple and straightforward. Not easy, but simple and straightforward, rather than the complicated mess of trying to feed, maintain, and defend your ego. This has been a fantastic roundtable. I appreciate everybody being here and expressing your insights, sharing your journeys, sharing the shit that you're going through, because we're all going through this shit. And it's so important to communicate that, to recognize that there is no point where all of a sudden you're above it. You've mastered it all, but actually to be in it and to not let it bother you means everything. I'll pass it over to Andrew, but we're going to continue on Patreon in about 15 minutes. Join us if you can. It's a tier 2 call today, and you can sign up for the 7-day free trial.
Fuck yeah. This has been fucking awesome. Amanda, I have thoughts about what you just said too, but I'm going to save them for Patreon. This has been a lot of fun. Appreciate everyone who tuned in or listened after the fact. And thank all of you, Amanda, Levi, and Marie, for making this, and Ray, of course, for making this what it was. Talk to everyone soon.
Bye, everyone.